Welcome to Business Success Tips, where you learn to make more money in less time and have a lot more fun. I'm your host, Paul Sandeman. I am founder of Contractors Staffing Source, where we help contractors build great teams. My guest today is Roland Ligtenberg, co-founder of HouseCall Pro. So, Roland, give me a little backstory, how you founded it, why you came up with the idea. The listeners would like to know how things get started.
That's a great question. I'm happy to be here. Nice talking to you, Paul. So, we started HouseCall Pro back in 2013, and we launched it officially, HouseCall Pro, in 2015. And what we saw was that there weren't a lot of tools built out for our pros, especially not mobile. And our pros are on the road, on the go, all the time. This is before there were a bazillion apps. There were probably only a billion apps at that time, but there weren't any that were targeting, and specifically built for our pros, our home service professionals. So HVAC, plumbing, electrical, home cleaning, power washing, garage door, septic, those types of folks that visit residential homes, multiple times on a daily basis. And so that's why we built this app and wanted to make it really easy for them to manage their entire business from the back of their pocket. And then that way, when they got home, they didn't have to get back to stack of paperwork and invoices. So,
Right.
we do the scheduling, the invoicing, the dispatching, the payments. We also now do the marketing. We do websites. We do reviews. We do payroll. We do accounting. We do bookkeeping. We do all of the things, that hopefully our pros don't want to do. And
Right.
so, the core premise here is how can we help champion our pros to success? And that's what we've been doing since twenty
So,
thirteen.
is your background in software? How did you get into this?
My personal background's in all kinds of stuff. I used to do lots of different things. I played professional poker. I was a scuba dive master. But where I met my co-founders was actually at Qualcomm, which is a big tech company that if you're using a phone today, you've got Qualcomm IP in it. And so to build this business, we had a background in mobile, which is why we kind of saw that opportunity being, we saw where mobile was going. And not everybody can pretty much operate the entirety of their life just from, the little phone that's in their pocket.
That's true. That's true. So then tell me, there's other apps out there, and you're one of the original ones, I think, or go back quite a ways. Um, a common question is, why is your app better than the rest? Everybody does that, right? Because there's a couple apps that do what you do, right? So you obviously have some competitive advantages. Can you get into detail? I talk like everybody knows the competition. There's two or three major companies out there that do this. So what makes you guys better?
Sure. Sure. So I think, as a mission-based company, and champion our pros to success, everything we do is built around making sure our pros businesses are growing. So on average, our pros businesses grow about 30 to 35%, year over year, on average. And so how do we do that? A lot of the ways in which we're differentiated or just better is simply just the ease of use. So our pros are busy, they're tradespeople. They have to focus on actually running the business and doing a trade at the same time. And so for us, we've made it very easy for them to get up to speed, how to use it, how to train other people how to use the app. And with that, it's become so much less burdensome on the business owner. They're not software experts. They can't, train, a whole bunch of new apprentices on how to use this kind of stuff. So we've made it very simple and easy to use. And then we've also made it really comprehensive. So we offer lots of different services. So a lot of the other software providers, while they might do kind of core field service management style stuff, they don't offer payroll. They don't offer business financing. They don't offer GPS and dashcam trackers. They don't offer an accounting or bookkeeping team. They don't build your website for you. They don't
Right.
manage your marketing for you. So there's all of these other aspects that actually fit really nicely around the calendar, because our pros are successful if their calendar is full. And
Right.
part of the problem and some of the things you guys help with is, as our pros grow, they have to find great people to work with them. And a part of
Right.
that is, how do you attract people to your business? And it's very hard if you're using one of these bigger softwares that are overly complicated, clunky, take months and months and months to learn. Very difficult to keep, find, and retain those style employees. But also on the other front, how do you make it super simple for them to onboard and they can just start using it from day one? And so that's kind of where we come in. And as our pros grow, they need to go find great people. And that's kind of where you guys come in.
Yeah. Well, you know what I was thinking, Roland, is to me you're sort of the ideal because the dice kind of size company because there's the big ones that are huge, they're very corporate, and they have hundreds of thousands of users. And when you call, they've got 800 employees, and you get the guy who was hired last week. And I mean, it's so big, it's corporate, right? And it's hard for the little guy to relate to corporate. I know some software companies that have gone that route, and they're more interested in an IPO or whatever than they are in the client. You know what I mean? It's a different kind of strategy, right? And there's companies that just got started that don't exactly know what they're doing, right? They've been around for a year and a half because it looked like a good idea. They don't have the same background you do and the same history that you do. So to me, you're about the ideal size because you're big enough to know what the heck you're doing. You've been around a long time, but at the same time, you don't seem too corporate to me. At least that's my thought.
I'm glad we don't because we've got thousands of employees, we've got 50,000 pros out there, so we're definitely a big company now at this point. But for us, we we have to help all size pros, and so our software is ideally for people that are just starting the business, so there's $0 or maybe even the negative dollars,
Right.
all the way up to about $10 million, and that's kind of really who we serve is that bracket of pros in the residential home service space, and we know our customers really well, and we grow with them, and so because we really know who we work well with, we can offer that personalized level of support, and that's why I come on and do these podcasts, and I love talking to pros. And what's truly unique about us is we've got our own community. And so if you are a HouseCall Pro user, you get to join our Facebook group where we've got 30,000 other business owners that are there
Mhm.
talking about not just HouseCall Pro, but business. How do you handle performance pay? What do you do with employee handbooks? What type of insurance do you think is best? All these
Mhm.
types of questions where normally a lot of our pros, they don't come with a business background. They don't know the answers to these questions. Who do they turn to? Who's their community? And so that's something unique that we have that nobody else has. Definitely not at scale, definitely not at size. And then we have our super pros group, which are really our elite. Those are our top 5% of customers. They have their own group. We even have some super pros that have house call pro tattoos. So they
Right.
just love our brand and evangelize it. And so that's just a whole nother tier. So if you happen to be, in that echelon, you can apply. It's free. You just have to be a HouseCall Pro customer. But that sense of community, being able to bounce ideas off of other people that are in it day to day, experiencing what you are, that's really key.
So what do you find the biggest issues that, let's say, guys between 2 and 15 employees, the small guys, right? Which is like all our customer base. What do you find are the biggest issues they confront, and how do you solve those issues?
So a lot of our pros, when they're first getting started out, the first issue that they have is I'm so busy, I can't even answer my own phone. I need to hire somebody.
Right.
And there's a couple different paths. You can hire someone. The second path would be, you could outsource it to a call center. The
Right.
third path you can take is you could use HouseCall Pro's CSR AI. That'll also handle the phones for you.
Right.
And do it without calling in late, calling in sick, and work 24/7 for you on pennies on the dollar. Um, but that's the first sort of overcome. But what are they trying to accomplish? They need to delegate something they were previously doing that they need to find someone else to go do so they can work on higher value tasks. That's what they're trying
Right.
to do. And so through that entire path, I mean, you made a really big path because there's so many different milestones and points
Right.
throughout there where at a certain point the owner is no longer in the field or infrequently in the field. And at this point they have like a lead technician who's actually out there training the new techs that are coming into the business. So along each one of those stages, the owner of the business needs to be able to repeat scalably their processes through other human beings and hopefully do it with as much care as they would. So that's difficult. And I think hiring great people is very time consuming. It's very critical to the business, but it's probably one of the things that as an owner, you're in direct control of, and that will shape the future of your business. So you have to
Yeah.
have a really great partner in staffing and recruiting and finding great people for your business.
Because also, if you hire the wrong person, it's worse than hiring nobody at all, right?
That's right. They could be a drag on the business. They could make your top performers quit.
Right, that's true. Now, most of these guys don't start out as entrepreneurs. They start as like, they don't know how to fix plumbing, or they know how to, HVAC guy. There was some kind of technician usually. They said, hey, I can go into my own business. How hard is this? My boss makes way more money than me. I can do this on my own. They make this kind of decision, right? To do it on their own. How do you help them transform from, I'm going to call a craftsman mentality to an entrepreneurial mentality? Because it's a whole different mindset, right? And so you got a guy who figures, I mean, I used the example one time when I was helping coach somebody and I was doing strategic planning, whatever. And I said, you don't value what I'm doing. And he goes, bullshit, I took off work to do this, right? So it's like, they don't, they have a whole other mindset of like work is physically doing something, and strategic planning doesn't qualify as work, right? So how do you help guys, maybe your group does it, make that transition from a craftsman to more of an entrepreneur or a business owner?
Yeah. So I don't think there's particularly modes that people operate in and that they're stuck in. I think there's definitely a spectrum. And I think it's just what people are used to. And as a technician, you're definitely used to being the best craftsman because that's all you're exposed to.
Right,
And that's all you're kind of allowed to do. But as you
right,
go start your own business, all of a sudden you start to figure out there's a whole bunch of other responsibilities you need to do. And there's some of those responsibilities that you are good at and you like to do. And there's other ones that you're not good at that you don't like to do. And then the other ones too, you're good at, but you don't want to do. So, when you look at this framework, this matrix, you need to decide as the business owners, what are things where you add the most value to the business? And as you're growing, being humble and continually learning are going to be the keys to making this transition from like what you said, which is kind of craftsman to also like business person or a combination of the two.
right,
And somewhere within this path, is kind of the max ceiling, depending on what you can and can't do and what you want to manage and what you don't want to manage. We help many successful pros stay small forever and make great margins running a small business with few headaches. Then we have other great businesses that have scaled to 20 employees that are doing double digit millions, that are just killing it, that are doing amazing. But they've had to change their mindset and continually evolve over time to get there. And so some people want to remain craftspeople and really love the trade aspect and solving, mechanical problems, solving wiring problems, those
right,
types of things. At a certain point, you have to become a people manager and understand how humans work, which are far more complex than kind of
right,
the red wire and the blue wire. You
right,
can only cut one or the other. With humans, you got 10,000 wires you got to go figure out
right, right.
and set in the right space. But yeah, it is a hard transition. At HouseCall Pro, we obviously have the Facebook group. We also have an entire coaching part of our business, which includes not just the business coaching side, but also the accountability side, which helps keep folks that really don't have a boss to be accountable to themselves. And that's a really core, I say, benefit of coaching because it is lonely out there. As an owner, who's going to keep you accountable on the decisions you're going to make and who's going to call you out? Because, humans are notoriously bad at calling themselves out. And
Well,
sometimes you
accountability,
need
I
a
don't
little bit
have
of tough
a
love.
doubt. Accountability was key. It's sort of like, how do you get in shape? You eat less exercise. What's the problem, right? That's why people have trainers, because of accountability. Because everybody knows
That's
what
right.
to do, but doing it is a real challenge sometimes without accountability. So tell me a little
Yeah.
bit, how does your coaching program work? How does that tie in with your software? What's the whole package look like?
So everything about House Call Pro is fairly modular because there is no one path to success. And so, in order to support our pros, depending on what they need and what they want, we've got success advisors, we kind of craft a roadmap for them in different tools that we have, different offerings that we have, different services that we have, based upon what they need in their stage and their size and their goals. There's no sense in hiring a coach to just, we've got coaches that focus on growth. We've got coaches that focus on like efficiency and some both. But there's no point in matching someone with a growth if all they want to do is stay small, but run
Right,
hyper lean and hyper efficient,
right,
and so there's a whole matching progress. But inside of HouseCall Pro, we've got a success advisor team that any of our customers can talk to. And they'll say, hey, you know what, Paul, did you know we've got this new pipeline tool that'll help do automatic estimate follow-up for you. It sounds like things are kind of falling in the cracks because, you've been growing your team and you don't even know all the estimates that are out there. So we can suggest different software tools that we have. We can suggest different either coaching or accounting or bookkeeping, or we have our own call center as well, HouseCall Pro Assist, if you want humans answering your calls, or even our AI products, because we have AI team members as well. And so what's interesting and definitely probably interesting to your audience is we're encouraging our pros to evaluate in their business as they're growing, what are things that AI team members can do versus humans?
Right. Well,
And so there's
that's changing literally every week, right, Roland? I mean, the
yes, yeah.
AI right now, AI can literally make the phone call, set the appointment. It couldn't do that a year ago, right? So it's changing rapidly.
Going fast.
And so the other thing I see that's happening, so you got AI coming in. One of the side effects of AI, which is interesting, is AI is taking over a lot of things like attorneys, doctors, astrologers. When you're selling information for money, AI can do it better, faster, and cheaper than people can. So now the capital, like private equity, is going, oh my God, I got 100 million bucks. What do I do with it? So there's all this consolidation of, the kind of industry you're in, of roofing companies, of HVAC companies, because people are going, well, I got $10 million. Let's do a roll up in roofing because I can't put it in a hospital or I can't put it in a production company because they're going to go away. Do you see that happening in your industry where private equity is coming in and doing roll ups and that kind of thing?
Yeah, there's definitely roll-ups happening. And I think it's because the simple fact that there's, and you kind of alluded to it, but there's sitting jobs and there's standing jobs. And we don't have Elon robots running around yet in attics and crawl
No,
spaces
no,
yet,
not yet. No.
not yet. And so when we take a look at our pros, they've got very specific skills that are these standing job skills that
Right.
complement very well with AI because a lot of the sitting stuff is like, optimizing a route. Like, okay, have a computer optimize a route,
Right.
or like
Do an
inventory
estimate on a
management.
roof or something, right? It can do the estimate on, right?
It can do that. It sees the square footage, input three variables, and boom, it can spit out beautiful images, beautiful proposals, and all the different things. So I think that's where, in our space, when it comes to private equity money too, it's just how do you add a leverage onto an asset that is under optimized? And so a lot of these PE companies come to us saying like, hey, can we get HouseCall Pro either in a franchise mode or in a roll-up mode so we can make all of these purchases much more efficient, right? Because they're trying to get the extra value out of those
Right.
companies where maybe there are inefficiencies. And so HouseCall Pro is perfect at driving efficiency and standard operating procedures and checklists and making
Right.
sure that people are doing the right task all the time. Because humans are, they're a little fallible and they'll
Yeah.
forget or they'll just do their own thing. You got to keep them on track. And so it's very complementary to what we're seeing right now in the market for sure.
Cool. And then as far as pricing goes, I'm sure it depends on what you get, but where's your basic pricing? How does it, depending on what you get? Give me sort of a combination of what you can buy and what it's going to cost.
Sure. So yeah, there's a lot of different components, but at its most core sense, if you're just starting a business, it might run you 50 to 60 bucks a month. If you're growing a small business under 5 employees, it'll be a couple $100. If you've got 10 or more employees, you're still at maybe $500 or something. So in the grand scheme of things, it's very cost effective and depends on the different things that you kind of layer on. But if you're just starting out your business, if you're not willing to invest 50, 60 bucks a month in a software that's literally going to run the entire part of your
Probably in the
day,
long term, right?
yeah, then maybe pen and paper is the best thing,
Right.
But the other thing I always say is like pen and paper isn't free. Even triplicate isn't free. And if you were to buy triplicate paper, which is the yellow,
Right.
pink,
Yeah.
and the white stuff, if you buy that on a per job cost, HouseCall Pro is actually cheaper.
No, it
And
sure is.
so yeah, so it's one of those things where we're the most affordable out there in the market, given all the things that we can do by an order of magnitude. The biggest leader is maybe 10x our cost, and that's
Right.
like if you go into Salesforce range, you're building custom stuff, and but you've got to have double-digit million-dollar companies, where you can hire people whose specialty is just running the software. Most
Right.
of our pros aren't that size. We focus on that $0 to $10 million a year
Right.
range.
We don't have an IT department to fix stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Who
if
has an
people
IT
get a hold of
department?
Roland, how do they do that? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Sure. If you're curious about HouseCall Pro, if anything I said resonates, you can always just go to housecallpro.com. If you want to message me personally, you can always text me. My phone number is 858-215-1512. You're probably like, Roland, you're crazy. Why do you do that? Because little people take up that opportunity to actually text me, but the ones that do are super serious. So I am happy to get you in touch with the right people on my team based upon your situation.
Cool. Well, thanks. I appreciate being here. It sounds like a great value. And if you are in the home service business, not calling Roland is just a mistake, in my opinion. So thanks, Roland. I appreciate you being here.
All right. Thanks so much, Paul. Happy to be here and wish you all a lot of success.
Thanks.